Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for the Wake County Disparity Study informational meeting. We know there are lots of things you could be doing this afternoon, and so we're very thankful that you decided to join us for this very important project. So I want to first take this opportunity and to introduce myself. I'm Michelle Clark Jenkins. I head the consulting group of Griffin and Strong. We're a law and public policy consulting firm. And also as part of our team today, I have Cadelia Troublefield on. She's our deputy project manager. And I think I saw Stephanie Perry Moore, who's one of our other deputy project managers. So we're going to present to you really today what a disparity study is, what kind of to look for over this next year, what expectations. And then at the end of the presentation, it'll be open. You can ask us questions about the study, our methodology, about the year to come. Okay, so first let me tell you a little bit about our firm. As I said, we're Griffin and Strong. We're a law and public policy consulting firm. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia. This is all our firm does. We specialize in disparity research. We do contract compliance. We do supplier diversity implementation. We have a really strong team. We have 5 attorneys, 2 PhD economists, a PhD social psychologist, and a PhD in anthropology. Our CEO, Rodney Strong, who started the firm about 30 years ago, was the director of contract compliance for the city of Atlanta and was the project manager on the first post-Croson municipal study ever done. He was also part of a group of attorneys and economists who watched this case come up through the courts, which is why now we do disparity studies. He was also the principal architect of the City of Atlanta's EBO program, which now became the model for the nation. Our principal investigator, Dr. Vince Egan, is one of the foremost disparity experts nationwide. He's conducted over 150 studies, and he has successfully defended 6 studies as the expert witness, including the case that is controlling in North Carolina. So we want to just tell you that you are in good hands. So first of all, let me start with really what is a disparity study. It really is an objective research tool that determines whether there's disparities in a governmental agency's procurement activities in certain groups. It was developed based on race and gender, but it determines whether those disparities are statistically significant and they're caused by the race and gender status of the firm owners. And that once we finish the study and we present the findings to Wake County, if they accept our study and our recommendations, they're intended to become policy. So the reason we do disparity studies is this case I mentioned, City of Richmond, Virginia versus J.A. Croson. It was a 1989 case. It was the first time really that malevolent discrimination was looked at the same way as remedial preference programs. What the 14th Amendment, as the court said, the 14th Amendment says all citizens are really supposed to be treated equally. So you're not supposed to give one citizen preference over another. And so, but when you do preference programs, they're meant to in essence, fix some kind of past wrong or some kind of disparity. So what the court said is you can do that, but only if you pass our judicial scrutiny of strict scrutiny. And for any of our participants who are attorneys, you know that strict scrutiny has always been said strict in theory, fatal in fact. So it was always thought that if the court had a level of judicial scrutiny that high based on race, and in Croson, it was really just based on race, then you could never have a program. So It also said that you have to have this strict scrutiny, which means you have to have a factual basis in evidence. In essence, you have to prove the existence of discrimination before you can have a program to, in essence, rectify that. And societal discrimination was not sufficient, and nor was a factual predicate based on population. It also said that anything that you do to remediate any disparities that are found has to be narrowly tailored to whatever our findings are, so that it's not over-inclusive or under-inclusive. So the way that we conduct a disparity study, the Croson case told us what we had to do. So in order to have any kind of a race and gender conscious program, for governments to have any kind of program like that, you have to have this factual predicate I mentioned, and you also then have to have narrowly tailored remedies. So the court said what we had to do, but it didn't tell us really how to do it. So since 1989, methodologies have developed on how do you do these disparity studies so they'll be accepted by the courts, since they are a creation of the court. So there are a number of moving parts, which is why it takes at least a year to conduct a study. We do a legal analysis. We do a deep dive into the policy. We do a lot of data collection. We do our analysis. I'm going to talk about each one of these: a relevant market analysis, utilization and threshold, availability, the centerpiece, which is the disparity analysis, a private sector analysis, anecdotal collection, which you all are now a part of, and then our final report. So I'm going to break down each one of these kind of quickly. The policy review is critical because it tells us what is the county presently doing? How is it conducting its procurement? And so we want to find out whether any of the policies currently on the books present a barrier to any minority and women-owned firms. We also are looking to see if their policies are understood by staff, whether there's a discrepancy between policy as written and the way the policy is implemented, and then what policies can be modified to promote inclusion. This is important because when we get to recommendations, it's difficult to recommend what the county should be doing unless we really have a good understanding about what they're already doing. So then we do a relevant market analysis. That is simply, what are the parameters of our study? Like, if there's a firm in California, are they part of this study? Is it only firms who are located in Wake County? Do they have to have a headquarters there? So it's, what are the geographic parameters of our study? And that's determined by where the county's already spending its money. So what we look at is we look at all the payments for the last 4 years that the county has spent. And we say, what is the location of those firms? At least 75% of them. So we start in Wake County, we start to pull out, okay, Wake County, the county surrounding it, a little further out, where do we get where there's 75% of their dollars are being spent? And that becomes the parameter of our study. And the rest of the analysis really only uses firms within that geographic parameter. The other thing is, and we do it by different work categories. So the categories that we're studying are construction, A&E, which is construction-related professional services, other services, and goods. So in each of those 5 categories, where is the county spending its money? We also look at what is the county buying. So only the things that the county buys will be included in the study. Now, with most counties, that's pretty much everything. Counties aren't really narrow in terms of what they buy, so it'll be a pretty broad study. So once we've decided these parameters, now we want to look at where is and with whom the county is spending its dollars. So we look at pretty much every dollar spent for the last 4 years by the county, and we want to analyze whose pocket did that money wind up in, both as primes and as subcontractors. So we want to know each year, so we disaggregate the data by year, by work category. So we separate it into these 5 different buckets. And then we want to see by ethnicity and gender. So we're looking at African-American owned firms, Asian American owned firms, Hispanic American owned firms, Native American owned firms, non-minority women owned firms. And then there's a catch-all that's all the firms that don't fall into one of those categories. And that could be white male-owned firms. It could also be publicly held companies. It could be non-certified firms that we don't know. So we don't know what their ethnicity and gender are. So all others go into that catch-all category. We also do a threshold analysis. What level of contracting is the county doing? So we start, let's say, from 0 to 50,000. How many of their awards are between 0 and 50,000? How many of their awards are between 50,000 and 100,000, 100,000 to 250, 250 to $500,000? That's an important analysis for 2 reasons. One, because we're looking at where there are opportunities for particularly small businesses, and a lot of minority and women-owned businesses are small. So where are the opportunities? Are there a lot of opportunities? Because some of the pushback we get on these studies is, well, you've made all these small firms available to do business with us, but they can't do $5 million contracts. Well, that may be true, but are most of your contracts $5 million? And almost in every case, that's not true. Most counties and cities, even large cities, have a lot of really smaller contracts, under 50,000, under 100, under 250. But we'll find out exactly the level of contracting, because that may give more opportunities for small businesses. It also allows us to do an analysis to take the outliers out. So take out the really large contracts. Is there still a disparity? And I'll talk about how we measure disparity in a minute. Is there still a disparity when we take out those really large contracts? So then the next thing we do is availability. So who are the ready, willing, and able firms who are out there who can be performing the work? And we do what's called a list approach, which is we look at the county's bidders, because clearly if firms are bidding, we're going to want to count them in there. We count their vendors, their awardees, their payees. We look at the certified MWB lists and any third-party certified lists, which in North Carolina really is probably the hub list and the NCDOT list. So we do look at factors like contract size, business capacity, and experience. So then again, the heart of a study is really the disparity analysis itself. That's where we're comparing utilization to availability. So for example, if I have 100 engineering firms in the state, in the Wake County area, and out of those 100 engineering firms, 10 are women-owned firms, then I have a 10% availability in engineering of women-owned firms. But when I look at the spend, if I look at the county spend with engineering firms and 2% of their dollars went to women-owned engineering firms, I now have a 10% availability compared to a 2% spend. So there is a disparity. I then have to test that disparity to see if it's statistically significant. 2% to 10% is probably going to be statistically significant, whereas if it was 9% to 10%, probably would not. We then have to do one more test, which is, now that we found a statistically significant disparity between availability in the marketplace and utilization, is that disparity likely caused by the race and gender of the owner? So the regression analysis takes a number of other factors, equalizes them out, things like how long the firm's been in business, how many employees they have, the education of the owner, the revenues of the firm, a number of things, equalize them out. And if there is still a disparity, then the court allows us to make an inference of discrimination. It says once you've taken out all these things, it is likely that the difference is because of race and gender. Therefore, we've proven what's necessary under that Croson test to determine those disparities. So once we've done that, we still have to do one more analysis, which is what's called the private sector analysis, which is a little bit of a misnomer because what it really is a marketplace disparity analysis. The reason that's important is there would have been a time, not so long in some of our histories, when we would have looked at engineering firms and would have said, well, there are no African-American owned engineering firms. We didn't use any. So 0 to 0 is parity, no disparity, no discrimination, no disparity. Well, you have to go further and you have to look at, are there disparities in the private sector? In other words, outside of what Wake County is doing, are there disparities in the marketplace? And because your marketplace is your feeder for the firms who are going to be ready, willing, and able for the county to use. So it's like what's called a but-for analysis. So but for what's happening in the disparities or the discrimination in the marketplace, would there be better availability? Would there be more available firms? So we do that by looking at self-employment disparities. We look at building permit data, which tells us what's happening in the marketplace in construction, which is one of the largest areas. And we also look at credit market disparities. Then all of you become really important to our process through the anecdotal evidence. The courts were very clear that we need to get input from the community if the community is prepared to give it. So we do things like this informational meeting where at the end, you all will hopefully talk to us and ask your questions. We do one-on-one anecdotal interviews that are kind of more like case studies, talking to firms and about their experiences. Every one of these that we're doing really asks one crucial question. What is your experience doing business with Wake County or attempting to do business with Wake County? And if you haven't even attempted to do business with them, why not? So we look at these anecdotal interviews. We do a survey of business owners. We do public hearings. We do focus groups. We do organizational interviews. So one of the things we would love for any of you who knows of an organization that we need to contact who has a membership, who might be interested or want to become involved, we would love to interview them. And if nothing else, send them our flyers to some of our future public meetings to ask them to engage their membership. We also, if you can't participate in any of these and you still want to tell us your story, we have a dedicated email address and we are pretty active on social media. This is important because, again, when we get to our recommendations, our findings come out of all the things we see and all of those steps that I told you about. But now, depending on what the outcome of the study is, and we have no idea what that's going to be, and hopefully that's an objective outcome, we now need to make recommendations to the county about how to fix whatever we find. Well, you all are the ones with the experiences in the marketplace, so we ask you, what are your concerns? What are the things the county could be doing better? What are the things they're doing really well that you like? That's really important, that we don't just get complaints, but we get to know what the county's doing that works really well because you want them to keep doing it. And so we begin to find out what are some of the challenges, some of the obstacles, some of the good dealings that you've had in doing business, attempting to do business. And then again, if you haven't even attempted, why haven't you attempted to do business with the county? Some of those things are going to be the things the county can confront and can fix. And we want to be your voice to that, to say to the county, here's the things we heard. And I will tell you that every person who tells us something is included in some way in this study. Either it's going to be because you're one of the, 20% who told us XYZ, or even some of the people who tell us who may be the only voice on an issue. We still a lot of times will voice that to the county, because if you own a business and two people walk into your store and have a certain complaint, even though it's two people out of the 100 who walked in your store that day, wouldn't you want to know about that? And so we try to communicate as much of what you tell us to the county as we can. So here's our projected timeline. We're already underway. We've already gotten most, if not all, Cordelia, the data that we need to move forward. And we're now having the informational meeting. The website has launched. We're doing policy interviews, collecting the data, launching the online survey. We're real busy right now. Now, once we've collected everything, then we'll start our analysis. And then in the winter, probably into early spring, we'll be producing the study itself. So lots of ways you can be involved. Be vocal. We want to hear from you. Complete the survey of business owners, which will be a couple of months in the coming. All of you, particularly since you've joined this meeting, will be on our email lists to send the survey to. If you're contacted, we do interviews and focus groups randomly. So if you are contacted to conduct an interview or be part of a focus group, please say yes. And then please attend our public hearings, which I think will happen late summer, early fall. There'll be 2 public hearings where you can again come and express yourself. And you can always leave a comment on our dedicated email. Cordelia checks that regularly and we will respond to you. And we would love to hear your story if you are someone who would rather write it down at Wake County Study at gspclaw.com. That's Griffin Strong PC law.com. Wake County Study at gspclaw.com. Cordelia, would you put that in the chat room, please? So you all will have it. We also have a dedicated website that is currently up and active. It is WakeCountyDisparityStudy.com. Cordelia will put that in the chat room as well. The website will have upcoming events. So if you want to know when the public hearing is going to be, so you don't miss it, because maybe you didn't get our email blast, that will be there. There's information about our firm, about our individual team members, about some of the information I'm giving you today. This informational meeting, once we've completed it, will also be posted on the website. So I thank you for your attention. Now we're open for any questions you might have about us, about the study we're doing. Questions, comments? Someone posted that you weren't hearing me.
Before, but now we can hear.
Oh, you can hear. Okay.
We can hear, yeah.
Okay.
But I have a question.
Sure.
What I'm saying is we need some focus groups, like, Group Coalition for Minorities to set the standards. Why everybody else has, other people get, the minority are always, on the low side. The group, the immigrants and all that. Why can't they make it, focus groups so that they can live up to the standards of, what other people are in this country? Because there's generations and generations, people, get the money and they buy their own houses with cash and have businesses and everything. But then again, the minorities are left behind because they just came in, they worked hard. Like me, I've retired. I mean, I'm kind of half retired. I went to my med school, I studied residency program. I mean, I did my medical school and everything. But then again, I have a huge debt and I don't even own a home. I can't buy a home because I have a debt, and I have MPH, Masters in Public Health, as well as Public Health Administration degree. I mean, I'm equally, qualified for anything. But then again, there's disparity, they ask for experience all the time, and you can't have experience, when you are not employed, when you just had the degree, you gain experience on the job. So
Yeah.
this is what's happening here with the first immigrants. But our children, they studied here, they'll find a job out there. But what I'm saying is I'm having this issue here, and the huge debt is, I want to start a business of my own, but it's just backs me up with the debt I have, and you have to pay for, every month you have to pay for this huge debt,
Yeah.
this
So what,
Navient or federal or whatever this debt is, you're paying for every month you have to pay, but now they want income-driven repayment plan. You did that, and several things, and then the interest keeps on adding up,
yeah.
I mean, I
No,
didn't
I
even own a
understand.
home. I lived here for 40 years,
Yeah, so it's hard for us to undertake everything as part of our scope for this study. But what we are attempting to do is for business owners like yourself is to kind of carry those thoughts back. We are having focus groups. There will be focus groups as part of our study. Those are reported back. They are anonymous in the sense that we don't use your names, but the information is carried back to the county, and we make very specific. What happens is it's kind of a filter. It comes to us, and based on what we see as their policy, what you tell us, and also our experience, we do these studies all over the country, and we know a lot about best practices. We help the county to formulate some best practices, or at least we make the recommendations for them to do that. So we can't resolve everything in this study, but we do try to help the county with ideas about how they can provide supportive services, which is really what you're talking about.
Yeah,
There's a lot of those things I can't resolve as part of our scope. But one of the things we can make recommendations about is the kind of supportive services that the small businesses in their local area are really looking to have.
That's what I'm saying, getting a loan and, making it easy for the minorities to step up, to the standard,
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is DeQuanta.
Yes.
My name is DeQuanta, and I'm the president of Two Bees Brains and Brothers, a local youth organization in Raleigh. And I'm sorry I couldn't get on Zoom. I don't know what was going on, so I called in. Will you be sharing whatever presentation you just provided, because I wasn't able to see anything? Because
within the next couple of days, it will be up on our website. Cordelia will put it up as soon as she can. Once we're done, she'll put the presentation up on our website, which again is you can't see it in the chat room, but it's Wake County, it's Wake County Disparity Study.com.
Disparity Studies.
Yep, it should
Studies
be easy.
With
Wake
the
County DISPARITY disparitystudy.com.
It's not Wake County Study at gspclaw.com.
That's the email address. So there are two separate things. One's an email if you want to communicate with us. The other is the website, and the website is wakecountydisparitystudy.com. Okay, I see a hand up. Okay, I don't know which one of you had it up first. So I'm going to call on Miss Langley because you're just first on my screen. Oh, did I lose her?
No, ma'am, you're still muted. There you go.
Okay, I'm sorry. First of all, thank you so much, Ms. Jenkins, and the stakeholders that put this together. I think it's very needed and necessary. My question is, it's been, of course, difficult to come in as a prime. Are there ways or a database that will meet the needs for me to come in as a subcontractor? I'm an ed consultant, and right now I'm not really ready to be completely honest, to go in as a prime, but are there databases that could be utilized so that other firms that's maybe looking for subcontractors are able to go in and connect? So that's my question.
So I can't answer that question because I don't know the answer to that question yet as we begin to undertake the study, but it is a good recommendation if in fact that's not there. What I'm hearing your recommendation is that I could potentially be a sub if I know who the primes are, so I can contact them and let them know I want to be a sub with them. So again, that's the kind of stuff that helps us to say, well, gee, county, do you have such a database that this person who wants to be a sub can tap into?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kristen Williams.
Hi there, good afternoon. I do want to say real quick, I have an answer to the previous question, which is it is currently being built by a group called The Amalgamation. So check them out. They're helping locally match make subs and primes in a way that actually works. My question is about subcontracting data. I know that, primes are really responsible for the payout. So when you're measuring the disparity, are you actually tracking the money, or is it just what was actually in the scope to be paid to subs? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. It is the most challenging part of our study, I'll let you know, because most jurisdictions do not fully track sub data. So one of the things we have to first do is kind of figure out what they have and what they don't have. The disparity studies are not perfect data all the time, but they are the best available data. So the perfect data for us is if our client, who is the county, kept all subcontractor data of all subcontractors for all projects. That I already know is probably not the case because it's not the case with most jurisdictions. So what we have to do, so that's the best case scenario. There are some times when the only available data is what was promised in the bid. We also know that because of our experience, there's a huge gap many times. That's part of the issue sometimes between what's been promised and what actually happens. So even when we only have sub-award data, we follow up with that by trying to contact the subs to say, did you actually get what was promised? So the worst case scenario is if there's absolutely no sub data, then what we try to do is we do what's called a prime vendor questionnaire. We send a questionnaire to all of the primes who perform services except for goods where there's little or no subcontracting. And we ask them, who were your subs and how much did you pay them? And you don't usually get you will never get 100% answers. So it's going to wind up being an analysis based on the sample responses you get. It's not the best data, but it's going to be our best available. And then, of course, one of our big recommendations to the county would be you have to start collecting sub data. I hope that answers.
Thank you so much for that. It did. So it just one follow-up. So that means that if we're looking at disparity studies generally, and it's through your organization, there's actually some room to say that we may, even showing disparity, we are like underestimating potentially the disparity that exists with subcontractors because we don't have that data.
Yeah, and see, there are a couple of factors that come into that. One, clearly we have a lot of data on primes. So we have 100% of the data we need to see if there's any disparities with primes. And then when we get to subcontractors, then it becomes a little murkier depending on how good our data is. So a lot of our recommendations will be about collecting better data along the way. But you're right, it is likely that whatever we've collected is going to underestimate the disparities rather than overestimate them.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And by the way, please put the name of that organization that you mentioned, Amalgamated something or other, in the chat room so we make sure we contact them as a resource for us. Okay, and Melanie Dorner.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. So one of my questions was, I'm curious as to, are there some typical or examples of policy recommendations or best practices that you're typically making at the end of the study? Because I'd just be curious as to what that could be and imagining what that could be for Wake County. And then my other question is this the first time Wake County has done a disparity study, or has Wake County done this before?
So to my understanding, this is Wake County's first study. Of course, there are other jurisdictions that have done studies around Wake County, but it's my understanding this is their first one. And yes, there are some things, our recommendations are tailored to what we see. But are there some things that I like using and we like using? Yes, there are some. I will tell you one that we like to use. Although, again, I don't know at this point whether it's something that's useful for Wake County, which is recommending a small business set aside. You can't do that based on race and gender, but a small business set aside is one where you set a threshold of dollars and then you say anything under these dollars can only be bid on by small businesses. Love that. I think it accomplishes so many things all in one fell swoop. Will we recommend it with Wake County? I hope so. But again, if it's not useful, if we don't think it fits for Wake County, we won't recommend it. But yeah, there are so many good practices. And one of the things we'll provide Wake County with is because we do know a number of the innovators and a lot of programs that we think are wonderful across the country, we will connect the Wake County people with other people who are doing there are some counties doing like stuff that kind of like, wow, like you're doing great stuff and you're watching their numbers work. And so you want to connect the people at Wake County to the people who are doing that innovation and say, listen, let me connect you with somebody who's actually doing this, and you can hear it from the horse's mouth rather than just from us. Okay.
Hi, my name is.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm DeQuanta Copeland again. I'm also vice chair of the Health and Human Services Board of Wake County.
Mm-hmm.
And have you guys as a firm come to the board? Because the question that I just heard was, have Wake County done any disparity surveys previously? And yes, we have. We actually meet monthly. And it is a public forum, so anyone is invited into the board meetings because it is public, and they can pre-register also to submit their questions or concerns or things that they think we should focus on.
Right.
So
I think they were asking if there was a disparity study, a formal disparity study, but I think the fact that you have this open forum, would you put that again? Oh, you're on the phone. As we'll see, yes. Can you say that again? And Cordelia, could you kind of say what she says and put it in the chat room? What is the monthly meetings that you have?
So we have monthly public, open public board meeting for the Health and Human Services Board, where the director of this economic services is present every meeting. And that is the fourth Thursday of every month. It is at 7:30 in the morning. It goes until 9:30. However, that is where we encourage the public business owners and anyone in the county that would like to see things implemented to come in and make suggestions so that we can put it on the agenda and begin to research how we can better support the people of the county. And so we just had a retreat in February where we did a large disparity study for about 4 hours across the county. And we're getting ready to present that information in July as to what we found. But public access is, I highly encourage to come in and speak so that we can better assist businesses and the citizens of the county in the
Great.
areas in which they need the help.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that. And we'll try and put as much information as we can in our chat room. Kathy Gaines?
Yes. I believe that at least they used to in the past. I haven't checked on it lately, but the hub, if you're hub certified, they do some tracking on set aside dollars for contracts. They do tracking on the number of small businesses that are hub certified that get subcontracts from primes. So they do try to track how many primes are actually seeking out qualified small businesses to give subcontracts to. So I know that's one area where there is a small database that's dealing with that. And also as a SPSF firm, small professional service firm, there are there is a limited dollar on certain contracts that set aside. In other words, so I don't remember the number, but let's say $250,000 contracts that are $250,000 or below that are, I don't know if they're necessary. I think they are set aside such that for small businesses, I don't think a prime could come in if it's a company that's over, I think $1,500,000. I don't think they can bid for that 250, but I don't know that to be the exact truth, but I think that is the case. So there are set aside amounts, projects with certain amounts that small businesses can bid on, and that can be checked through the NCDOT SPSF, and then the part as it pertains to set aside prime companies being able to, there's a requirement that they try at least to utilize those hub certified businesses, and there is some tracking there to determine if they did seek out qualified businesses. And if there are no qualified businesses, then of course they don't have to award it to a small business, but they do track that. So,
Right. So what you're talking about, so I want to make sure people aren't confused between, because there were kind of three entities in there. We've got the state, the state of North Carolina, in other words, Department of Administration. You've got North Carolina Department of Transportation, so NCDOT, and then you have Wake County. They are three separate entities, all who have three separate sets of policies. The reason sometimes that gets confused is because North Carolina is a little bit unique because you have state procurement laws that do affect everybody, but the set-aside program, Ms. Gaines, you were talking about is only related to NCDOT and doesn't, unless it's a
NC Hub, NCDOT and NC Hub.
And NC Hub does not have that program. We completed their study last year. We did recommend a small business set aside for the state itself, but the NCDOT actually has one in place. The county doesn't have that as of yet. Hopefully, again, it's a program I like, so if there's room for it, I'm sure it'll be something that we may recommend to them. But there is
NC Hub used to, I don't know again if they still do it, but they did used to track whether there were primes that were actually seeking out small businesses that were hub certified.
Right. So the state, because again, you have these state procurement laws and you do have hub, you have a centralized certification agency through hub. And by the way, one of our subcontractors who actually may be reaching out to you Bridget Wall-Lennon, whose
Yes.
consulting firm is BL Wall, is our subcontractor on this. She used to head the hub office, and she will be doing some of the interviews which you may be called for. But one of the things hub requires is that the agencies as well as the local jurisdictions do report in their hub utilization in what they call HubSco. So they have to report in what has been their MWBE participation. That's at varying degrees. There are some jurisdictions who have never reported. Some of them report sporadically. So but they're supposed to be doing, you're right, Ms. Gaines, they're supposed to be reporting in to the state what their minority and women-owned business utilization has been. We are looking at that for Wake, what Wake has reported. It's not the best of data because it's kind of data that went to the state and then comes back to us kind of secondhand. But again, you get the best available data that you can find. And so we're still in the process of ascertaining what that is. I see Restoring Health Nutrition. I don't have a name, but I have a business name. You have your hand up?
Yes. Hi, my name is Abiade, and I'm owner of Restoring Health Nutrition. We do nutrition counseling for people and also organizations and corporations. Most of the work I do is not usually listed in the RFPs. So I want to know if we'll be able to participate in this kind of research that you're doing.
So again, that's important information. Again, if I'm translating, is that a lot of the work you do, you're not seeing that come out in an RFP.
Yes.
But yet I'm presuming it's work that you're presuming the county does, but you're just not seeing it advertised. So that's a good question. That's one we can pursue, which is, they're not the opportunities for RFPs to come out and where they are and where they aren't coming out.
And also, if I'm not sure if your research involved this, but if there is a venue or a place where minority business owner can come together and relate or link with people that are in charge of these programs that the RFP is not listed, like Department of Education or Department of Health Services. How do we meet people that are in charge of those services so that we can contact them or know what their needs are if they're not listed on the RFPs?
Okay, that's a good suggestion too.
Thank you.
Ms. McLaren, you had your hand. There you go. I lost it for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Isa McLaren, and I was wondering if this disparity study will have any benefit for small businesses that don't do business with the county. I run an independent publishing house and we publish books, and we don't have any resources to expand to perhaps find a contract with the county. We just want to focus on working with authors.
Yeah, so really the focus of ours is where the county can, so there are kind of two parts to this. The primary focus of our study is to see whether the county, to help the county to make sure it has equitable and inclusive policies and processes in terms of its contracting. I apologize for the pounding. I'm having siding put on my house and I'm working from home. So please try to filter. I've been trying to filter out for the past couple of days. So that's one part of it, and that's really our scope. However, what kind of comes out in the scope is for any local jurisdiction, which is how far do you want to go to help support your local businesses in general? So that's this area of supportive services. And you may be helping people with supportive services who want to grow or want to be able to do business, or again, like you, maybe that's not really your niche, which is doing business with the county. But if the county had certain supportive business services, because it's to the benefit of any local jurisdiction to build up the strength of its local, small, minority and women-owned businesses. And what we find also is when we talk about our scope is minority and women, but sometimes if you're building businesses in general, or you're building small businesses in general, for which the parameters and the restrictions for what you can recommend are much broader. We can do a lot more in terms of recommendations when they're not race and gender based. Sometimes you need race and gender based programs, but those ones where you can say, this is a program for all small businesses can in fact help to benefit a business like yours, even if you're not attempting to do business with the county. So there are some of those recommendations that we will look to make, because strengthening small, there are some jurisdictions say, listen, all we're interested is the lowest price and people coming to do business with us. And there's some jurisdictions that say, listen, we really want to see small businesses grow. So what can you tell us to help us to do that?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yolanda Taylor.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hi.
My name is Yolanda Taylor. I am the, managing attorney of my own Black woman-led law firm. So my question is, as we know, and this goes back to the initial question that the first speaker raised, which was around support. And studies, we gotta love studies, right? We know studies are great. They highlight and unearth inequities, but at the end of the day, we know that the county could conceivably reject the study or reject substantial aspects of the study. So I guess I want to hear more about your firm's outcomes and what are some of the great outcomes you've had, whether or not your firm has a racial social justice lens, because a lot of these issues, like I said, going back to what the first caller said, lack of access to information, there could be barriers to securing necessary bonding, the cost, expense of preparing bids, lack of previous success, and just a perceived unfairness of the process. So just wondering, what are some strategic changes you make that go beyond just merely recommendations? What are some examples of some strategic changes your firm can make that will yield maybe positive change in this area? Thank you.
Yeah, so those are big questions, but yeah, so yes, we do tend to look at things through the lens of social justice in the sense of starting with equity and inclusion to the extent that you can institutionalize that by certain rules or regulations or requirements. And that's really where we've been focused for 30 years. I will say this, and I'll tell you about a few successes we think we've seen, but this kind of goes all the way back 30 years ago to the city of Atlanta, which got its name, interestingly. Our CEO, Rodney, tells a story that when the Croson case came through the courts in 1989, and what had happened originally, there had been cases before that, and interesting, it was Richard Nixon who really put into place these what they used to call federal set-aside programs, where 10% of your contracts on the federal side went to minority-owned firms. And so what happened historically is that local and state governments started to mimic what the federal government was doing with these programs, kind of with no parameters. City of Atlanta, I think, had a 30% number based on population. A lot of them were based on population. Most major cities had some sort of a program like this. Well, then here comes Croson and basically says, people interpreted it to say, you can't do any of that. Because even though you're trying to fix past injustices, past discrimination, for which is ongoing discrimination, the Supreme Court says you can't take into account societal discrimination. That was really kind of a real downer at the time. And so Rodney was talking to Maynard Jackson at the time, and Maynard said, I don't know why they have a problem with this. All we want is an equal business opportunity. And with that, the EBO program in Atlanta was kind of birthed. And so if you look at Atlanta as a little bit of an example of what's happened in 30 years in Atlanta and the wealth distribution, you know, part of this is about every business. I don't care if you're Facebook or Michael Milken or your Amazon, is somehow getting governmental help in building their business. Even if it's through tax incentives, it's through whatever, you know, they're getting some kind of help and the government is contributing to the success of that business. And then, but if marginalized populations and communities are not getting fair access, even though they're equally paying taxes, aren't getting the benefit of that, then what you're saying is, well, we're going to starve this kind of side of the community, and then say, well, why are you starving? So what this does is it helps to distribute these kind of programs and these kind of outcomes. If they're successful, start to distribute, be more equally and equitably distribute public funds and assistance. And I don't mean assistance in the sense of a handout. I mean in terms of contracts and work that you can earn and that you can do. And then that money statistically is proven to go back into those diverse communities who also statistically hire more diverse workforces. So there's a, you know, everybody wins, you know, when there's an equitable distribution of public contracting. So in terms of the places we think we've been successful, I mean, Atlanta just is not because of us, but I think in general, it's a good example of kind of what can happen over, and it doesn't happen overnight, but perhaps it's over decades what can happen. We look at places like Bexar County, Texas, which has had a race neutral program for years, but relentless and tireless people who have put every nook and cranny. I mean, they're doing stuff there that I'm like, wow, you know, they're getting every nook and cranny and they're being successful. We finished last year a study for them, and we spent a year since then working through, we draft legislation, we get involved with program development, all of that with helping them put a new program in place. Memphis, Tennessee is a place that took advantage of local business development centers and brought them in-house and created, I think somebody said, is there a place? Well, Memphis created a place where businesses can come, get supportive services, you know, do certain kinds. They got computers where they've got people help you do this and do that to help develop your business. People help you to learn how to estimate. If you're good at, you know, I'm a good truck driver, I'm a good hauler, but I don't know how to do an estimate. Well, here, come take this seminar on how to estimate. Fulton County, Georgia has one of the best supportive services programs I've seen. All of the DOTs are required to have programs that are supportive services. So there's a litany of places I can tell you where these programs have been successful. But again, they're only successful if you don't just do a study and the study sits on a shelf. There has to be implementation that follows these. And that's really, you know, our job kind of ends when we do the study. And then, you know, our track record in most, and I know because we've kind of heard the heart of the people at Wake County, that they're not doing this just to have a study. They're doing it because they want to see the places where they can increase, if that's needed, increase and definitely assure that the process is fair. And that's really our part. Our part, and I want to be clear about this, is not that anybody's guaranteed a contract. Our part is to help the county to make sure that its processes are inclusive and equitable. And if there are disparities, to how do we adjust those? How do we fix those disparities? That's really our job to recommend to the county. Carolyn Williams.
Yes, I am a retired independent IT contractor. And my question is, and I make a point of supporting minority and women-owned businesses. But my question is, how can I support this effort? Do you have any recommendations on how people like me can support this effort when we're not really in a position or have been in a business where we would be seeking government contracts?
Yeah, so again, you live in a community that wants to move forward in this area of helping businesses develop. So we're not really doing a needs assessment, but there are some parts of this that translate in needs assessment. So what does your business need to be successful? And I'm sure the county wants to hear that from businesses, even those who aren't necessarily doing direct business with you, which is what do our local and minority and women in kind of the general jurisdiction need to be successful. Again, we're not doing a needs assessment, but there is a big piece of this that is, what do you need to be successful?
Okay, thank you.
And so if you're called on to do an interview or to do be part of a focus group or fill out a survey, all those questions, we do ask you those kinds of questions, but yeah, participate. That's the biggest thing you can do as a business for us.
Thank you.
I see some questions in the chat room. Oh, I see Kathy Gaines with her hand up again.
Michelle, how do we contact you again other than the website information that's there?
Yeah, Cordelia we'll put the email address in the website again.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got some questions. I think I answered that one. The slide I had up last, someone asked me to put up my last slide. You're talking about the one that had the contact information? I think that was Denise Byron Cox. Or do you mean the one that had the contact information? Is that the one you're talking about? Oh, I don't think she's on.
I believe that she logged off.
Okay.
She had a meeting.
Okay.
My question, I know that you said the slides will be available on your website, but we're here in the presentation now. Is there no way
I can bet you're muffled? Can you speak up again? You're kind of muffled.
Yes, ma'am. I said I know that you stated you would put the slides on the website, but because we are here today during the presentation, can you not just put the slides in the email chain that we have to join this meeting?
Cordelia, I still couldn't hear her, but maybe you did. You want us to the link to the meeting? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I think to clarify, ma'am, did you say that you want the presentation, you want that mailed to the people that were inside of the presentation today? Is that correct?
Yes, can you email that to us? Because for me, I can't see at all because I'm a call-in. But for those of us who may want to go back and look at the information and compare with our notes, instead of having to go search on the website, can you not send it to us in an email?
Yes, she wants to know if we can send the presentation in an email, Michelle. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
Someone was asking about subdata. I think that is, okay, somebody put the amalgamation. Are participants paid to be in the study? No, unfortunately not. We don't have a paid study program. Are there any minority groups that help each other start a business? Or are there any government loans offered to start a business for minorities with low interest or low interest rates? So of course, there are SBA loans. So again, that's part of what we'll look at is what the county's already offering in terms of any programs. But outside of the county, I would look at SBA loans. Did Wake County get the sub data from each project, regardless? It's like, we don't know that yet. We're still working through. We've collected most of the data from the county. Again, we have what they've reported in terms of their sub data. So we haven't worked through all of that data yet, so we don't know the answer to that one yet. I think I've answered. Oh, for the disparity analysis, are you focusing exclusively on county level contracts, or will you also look at the cities that are part of Wake? No, the cities that are part of Wake are doing their own disparity studies. So again, we're looking at direct spend by Wake. So it's their direct spend because their policies are what affect their spend. So if it's another city, that city would have its own policies and its own spend that needs to be examined. And so every jurisdiction has a different study. Let's see, there's a very long one. I think Sarah Bailey put some information in the chat room for businesses. I think that's all I have in the chat room. Any more questions or comments?
For the lady that spoke about the Health and Human Services open public meetings every month, I was going to drop that information into the chat room for you all to be informed about that. Can you just tell me one more time which Thursday? I think, did you say every fourth Thursday?
She said the fourth. She said the fourth Thursday.
Okay, and then the time, I forgot the time that she said.
7:30 to 9:30.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, boy. Oh, okay. Anyone else? Ken Whedon, it's good to see you. Ken Whedon has Ken Whedon and Associates. They do a lot of the goal setting for particularly transportation agencies around the country, but they're based right there in the Wake County area. And Ken Whedon Associates works with us a lot. So Ken, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. I was on mute.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I've been listening along. It sounds like a really good study that's coming up.
Good, yeah, yeah. Okay, any other questions and comments?
I don't have a question, Ms. Jenkins, but this is great to be up here because I've actually was in one of the Ice House programs, and they were stating that unfortunately some companies were making the contact just to say they contacted it to meet a descriptor on their on their sheet to say they connected with a Hub certified vendor. So I found that was pretty that was pretty disheartening, but that was one of the crafty ways that I've heard some of them are doing it in order to say that they met some of the criteria for reaching out to Hub certified people, but not actually utilizing them.
Well, I'm glad you all joined us today. We have more discussions over this next year, focus groups, those get kind of lively, the public hearings where we're really opening up to say, come and tell us about your experiences, tell us. So between now and then, which will be the end of the summer, think about those things that have been your really good experiences. Again, can't emphasize enough that it doesn't have to just be, well, these are areas of concern. If you think there's something in the process that has worked really well that the county's doing, we really want to hear those, because you want to keep that, you want them to keep doing those good things. If there are areas of concern, your experiences are really what we want to hear. You know, what was your experience doing certain things, you know, from, even though the county's not the one that certifies, you know, of course, they're interested in your certification experience, interested in your bidding experience, interested in, you know, you get coming in as a vendor. How easy was that for you to come in as a vendor? All of those experiences help the county to better its processes. And so this is your opportunity. You know, it's from your mouth to our study. So it's important that you all participate and continue to stay engaged with us. We're all available. If there's, you know, even if you need to email us, just that email address comes straight to Cordelia. And we are happy to meet with you. We're happy to hear your stories. We're happy to, but that's, you know, that's an important part of our study, because it really gives us guidance at the, you know, when we do these statistical analysis, which is really a key part, because that's really the first part. We have to really figure out where statistically this all falls. But then when, you know, that doesn't paint a picture for us. That just kind of tells us the stark reality. And then it's like, okay, where do we go from here? And that's, you know, at least in part guided by the way that you tell us about your experiences, because you're the end user here.
How do we find out about others on this call that we may want to do some business with? And just for instance, like when you mentioned your siding, I need to get windows and siding, and there's probably a lot of small businesses on this call that I probably could do business with. So how do we find out, get information about some of the small businesses that are on here that may be able to deliver services that, not just that, other services that we would need? For instance, my business does IT, but
you are welcome to put your information in the chat rooms. Unfortunately, it's not information that we're at liberty to share with you unless someone volunteers to share that information. So I would say the best thing to do is we're on until 1:30. So you all are welcome to put your business information in the chat room for everyone else to see, if that's information you would like to share. Okay, we're going to stay on for a little bit longer, particularly now that someone said they wanted to do that. And we'll stay on a little bit longer. We're still open for any questions or comments you have about the study itself, or about, you know, the expectations for the study.
I don't have any questions about the study. You was pretty thorough with that information, but I would like to recommend that I know you gave the invitation to put the information in the chat, but we already have a chain of emails with all of us in it. If everybody can share that information via that chain of emails, because I can't see the chat, so I can't get the information.
Yeah, I mean, people are welcome to do that. Unfortunately, we can't do that. I can't share with all of you each other's emails.
Right, I understand that. I was just asking, is it okay if instead of putting it in the chat, if everybody replies to all on the email that we received the link for this meeting in? That way we will all have it.
So there wasn't necessarily like an email chain link that was used to send to everybody. It was, we used the third-party flyer website to send out, and we got the list of emails from another list where you all are registered on. So we don't necessarily have, like, you all don't have that access to necessarily like communicate with each other through emails per se, if that makes sense.
So the emails that are connected into the email that we received, the Zoom request?
So when you received the this flyer with the link and everything, it just came from the Wake County
Came from
Disparity
Zoom.
Study email. It wasn't necessarily like an invitation that connect to everybody's emails that you could see.
Okay, I see that now. Okay, thank you.
Oh, we have some good businesses in here. Yolanda Taylor, yours is the Center for Community Law and Equity. It's a not-for-profit. Is that a good organization for us to interview? Oh, I think maybe she's not still on. Oh, yes, she is. Yolanda Taylor?
Yes.
The Center for Community Law and Equity, is that an organization we should be talking to?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm open to speak with you all.
Okay.
It's not a nonprofit. It's actually a for-profit law firm, but that's my DBA.
It's a for-profit law firm.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I was thinking
that's my DBA.
Okay. All right. Got it. Good name though.
Yeah, I'm using the DBA because it's my mission. It speaks to my mission. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if we have no more questions, then we will end this session. Again, we are very appreciative of your time. We know it's valuable, particularly being business owners. And so we appreciate the fact that you have taken the time to participate in what we consider important, but clearly it's important to you as well. So thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and we'll keep in touch and hopefully you'll stay engaged with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thank you.